Can a rock be a premeditated murder weapon? Let's go in now to those opening statements in this trial for Joseph Koenig. And first up, we have the prosecutor, Catherine Decker, making her presentation.
The defendant's attacks were frequent. The defendant's targets were focused. The defendant's weapons were fatal. This is the defendant, Joseph Koenig. This is the man who on 3 separate nights between February and April of 2023 threw landscaping rocks at drivers. To be clear, the defendant wasn't dropping rocks off bridges, off overpasses. The defendant was driving either his truck or his friend's truck and throwing large landscaping rocks primarily at oncoming drivers as they passed. Those relative speeds and velocities combining, creating enough force for that rock, for those rocks, to smash through windshields, to destroy the bodies of cars, to destroy the bodies of humans. The issue in this case will primarily come down to whether the defendant knew he was creating a grave risk of death to others, and whether he did so with an attitude of universal malice and extreme indifference to the value of human life generally. The first rock could have killed Michael Morosco. You'll meet him. He'll tell you that he's driving his truck with his family in it around 10 p.m. that night of February 25th, when suddenly he's hit with a large landscaping rock. It smashes into his windshield, goes over his hood, causes him to drive off the side of the road, crash into a trash can. He's shocked and looks over to his young son beside him, who's covered in glass. The 10th rock killed Alexa Bartell. Unlike the others, you will not meet her. Unlike the others, she will not tell you anything. And that's because of what the defendant intentionally did, purposely, with this rock. You won't hear from her, but you will hear from the last person she spoke with. Her girlfriend of a couple years, Jenna Griggs. It's around 11 o'clock at night on April 1st, 2023, and they're on the phone when suddenly the phone goes dead. Jenna Griggs thinks they're disconnected, so she keeps calling, keeps going to voicemail. Starting to get worried, Jenna looks at where Alexa is on her Find My iPhone app and sees that Alexa is in a field off Indiana Street. So Jenna calls Alexa's mom, Kelly Bartell, and says, I don't want to worry you, but I see that it looks like Alexa is in a field off Indiana. Her mom says, okay, I'll call 911, you go to her. Jenna goes to her. What Jenna sees when she parks next to Alexa's car in that field brings her to hysterics. When Kelly Bartell arrives, she runs into that field. She runs to her daughter's car, and responders stop her. They don't let her go to her daughter. They don't let her go see her daughter, or what was left of her daughter. They don't let her go see her daughter, whose face is not only unrecognizable, but whose face is not there. They don't let her go see her daughter, whose head is an empty cavity because her brain is in the back seat. Nicholas Karol-Chik was with the defendant on all 3 nights charged. Zachary Kwak was a newer friend, so he was with him for the last. Those 2 were charged. Those 2 took plea agreements. And as a part of those agreements, they've agreed to testify in this trial. So you'll hear from them. They will tell you, focusing on April 21st, what happened in the truck they were in they see Alexa Bartell's headlights in the distance over some rolling hills coming towards them. They see her coming, and the defendant speeds up. The defendant rolls down his driver's side window. The defendant reaches across his body, grabs this landscaping rock with his left dominant hand, and throws it outside the driver's side window as she passes like a shot put. It makes a huge sound. And as the forensic pathologist who did the autopsy will tell you, this rock blew through her head like a cannon. As the defendant literally blows her brains out, he whoops. As this rock crashes through her back windshield, he says, holy shit. As this rock deposits part of her brain tissue on the side of the road before it lands in the grass, covered in her DNA, the defendant is excited. The defendant doesn't call 911. The defendant doesn't go check on this driver. The defendant does nothing to help. We don't have to prove he's the one who threw that rock, even though the evidence will. We also don't have to prove the defendant intended to kill Alexa Bartell or intended to kill anyone else. The instruction you will get is that the defendant knowingly engaged in conduct that creates a grave risk of death to someone other than himself. At the end of this trial, we will ask you to find him guilty of all of the charges.
What a powerful opening statement from the prosecution. How is the defense going to handle responding to that in front of this jury? We have to get to a break. When we come back, we'll listen to that defense opening in the rock-throwing murder trial for Joseph Koenig, happening in Colorado. Stay with us.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, the accused United Healthcare CEO shooter now facing federal charges. We're unpacking the latest developments as our experts weigh in.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV.
Doomsday cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
She's representing herself.
On charges of conspiring to murder her fourth husband.
She said, I can murder you now.
The cult mom conspiracy trial continues Monday morning on Court TV.
Welcome back. We are in Colorado for the case against Joseph Koenig, a defendant that the prosecution claims was one of 3 then 18-year-olds who threw rocks at cars in April of 2023. 2 of those teens took plea deals, and they will be testifying in this trial against Koenig. The victim in this case is 20-year-old Alexa Bartell. She died when a rock smashed through her windshield, hit her in the head, and caused her to crash her car. And we just heard a pretty powerful opening statement from the state, where the prosecutor said that Koenig knew his actions would have consequences. So now let's find out what the defense has to say in their opening statement.
Joe Koenig's conduct on April 19th, 2023 was a lot of things. It was reckless and dangerous. It was incredibly stupid. And yes, it was absolutely catastrophic, but it was not first-degree murder. Now, this case, this trial, is not about avoiding accountability for Joe Koenig. In fact, at the end of this trial, we're going to ask you to hold Joe Koenig accountable, but we'll ask you to apply the law to the facts and not try to appeal to emotions. And applying the law to the facts, you'll hold him accountable for the offenses he actually committed, not these inflated charges that the prosecution has brought. Joe Koenig made reckless, impulsive, and tragic choices. There's no question about it, but he did not knowingly commit a murder. He did not act with extreme indifference to the value of human life. In fact, he didn't intend to hurt anyone. In Mr. Koenig's mind, he wasn't targeting drivers. They were throwing rocks at cars, as foolish as that sounds today. For the most part, the facts in this case will not be in dispute. On April 19th, 2023, Joe Koenig was in a pickup truck with 2 friends. One is Nicholas Karol-Chik, who he had known for some time. Nicholas Karol-Chik goes by the name Mitch, and you will hear him referred to as Mitch throughout this trial. And the other one was Zach Kwak, who he had also hung out with for a little while, but not as long as with Mitch. And each of these boys was 18 years old. Each of these boys was a senior in high school, all three of them. And on the night of April 19th, they were driving around all over Jefferson County because they really had nothing else to do. There certainly was no plan. They weren't heading out to meet friends for dinner or plan to go to a basketball game or anything like that. And there certainly was no plan to cause mayhem. But they all knew basically what they probably would do with the rocks, because all three of these guys had been in the car before when they threw objects at cars. It could have been rocks or glass bottles. And in one case, it was a fiberglass lawn ornament. And the thrill of doing this, as stupid as it sounds to grown adults, was causing damage. It was stupid and it was immature, but not one of the three of these boys ever thought that they would use the rocks to hurt people. And the prosecution will tell you that each and every instance of throwing a rock from their truck at one of these other cars is an attempt to commit first-degree murder. And your common sense will tell you that that can't possibly be the case. There's no dispute that the cause of Alexa Bartell's death was blunt force trauma to her head, caused by the rock that Ms. Decker just set on the ledge in front of you. However, one fact is very much in dispute. And contrary to the theory that the prosecution will pursue, the evidence will clearly show that Zach Kwak and not Joe Koenig threw the final rock of that night, the rock that killed Alexa Bartell. Now, the evidence that you'll hear about who threw that rock will come from two witnesses who are going to testify in this trial, Zach Kwak and Mitch Karol-Chik. Both of them were with Joe that night. Both were involved in the same reckless behavior that all of them were. And importantly, both of them have changed their stories about their involvement and about who threw that rock, the last rock of the night, the rock that killed Alexa Bartell. Mr. Kwak pretended to have no recollection of where he had been that Wednesday night. This is the person that the prosecution is going to ask you to believe when he says that Mr. Koenig is the one who threw that rock. It was only when Investigator Manka decided to take a break in the interview and then came back and told Zach Kwak that he had information that people were implicating him as being the one who threw rocks, that Mr. Kwak said, wait a minute, it wasn't me. It was Joe Koenig who threw the rocks. You will also hear that in exchange for telling that story, Zach Kwak is getting a sweetheart deal from these prosecutors. And instead of facing most of the same charges that Mr. Koenig is sitting here facing today, he pled guilty to reduced charges. He'll receive a sentence that is drastically reduced from what he was looking at. I anticipate that you will also hear from Mitch Karol-Chik. And Mr. Karol-Chik will also come in here and tell you that it was Mr. Koenig. We think that's what he will say, that it was Mr. Koenig who threw that last rock of the night. But you're going to hear that Mr. Karol-Chik has changed his story and on multiple occasions has previously said that it was Zach Kwak who threw that rock. All three of them aided and encouraged the others. And because of that, even though the evidence will show that Zach Kwak did throw the rock that killed Alexa Bartell, that won't mean that Mr. Koenig is not guilty. In fact, all three of the boys in that truck, including Joe Koenig, are guilty of causing Alexa Bartell's death. We are not running from that. And when the trial is over, we are not going to ask you to find Joe Koenig not guilty. We're not going to ask you to not hold him accountable. We're going to ask you to find Joe Koenig guilty of the crime he actually committed, manslaughter.